welcome everyone, and on behalf of Rudy's fiance, Gail Fortin, I want to thank you for joining us as we celebrate Rudy's life together. And as I was milling around before our time together here, it just became obvious. Gail has shared an awful lot about Rudy, and we've been hanging out for the last 10 or 11 weeks in a grief group together. And anyway, long story short is Rudy was a wonderful man, and just this side of heaven, just sad I had gotten an opportunity to meet him. But we want to celebrate his life and just rejoice in the impact he's had on everybody in this room. And there's so many that couldn't come because just of various circumstances, but it's obvious how well loved he was. And as we get started here, would you pray with me, please? Lord, we're so grateful to come together, and we do want to celebrate Rudy's life and the impact he's had on everybody in this room and so many others, Lord. It's just amazing, Lord, the legacy he leaves behind. And so we want to celebrate that, Lord, and just we pray that in our time together that you would bring healing and comfort, and Lord, as we honor this wonderful man, and pray you'd be glorified in the powerful name of Jesus. Amen. The Apostle Paul in 2 Corinthians, the letter he wrote to the church in Corinth, he had these timeless words of comfort that I'd like to read to you. It's, "Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our afflictions, so that we may be able to comfort those who are in any affliction with the comfort with which ourselves are comforted by God." So our hope and our prayers we come together is that we would receive comfort and healing as we celebrate Rudy. And so in order to get us kicked off here, I'd like to invite up Gail Fortin, who was Rudy's fiancée and also our host this afternoon. And she'd like to share a couple thoughts with you.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
I just want to give you a little bit about our history. Rudy and I became really close friends while Rudy was climbing the state officer ladder within the Florida JCs back in the early or late 80s. Rudy became president of the Florida JCs in 88, 89, and I was the local Sarasota JC president. Basically, Rudy was my boss. In those days, being a JC was the thing to be. As state president, Rudy asked much of his local chapter presidents, and I was super motivated to earn every single award and honor that Rudy was willing to give out for myself and the great Sarasota JCs. By the end of our year as presidents, a lifelong friendship had formed. Rudy and I dated briefly after his marriage to Lynn ended, but crossing the state became too much for a relationship, and we went back to being great friends. Throughout the last 30 or so years, Rudy and I would keep in touch. Every 5 years or so, we would check in on each other with an email or a phone call. The conversation was always the same. How's your life? How's your wife? How's your life? How's your husband? How's your business? How's your work? We can't go 5 years again without talking to each other. Yeah, I know, we won't. Fast forward to the present. Late last summer, Rudy reached out to me again to catch up. Things were different now. Both of us were in transition. Rudy told me that there was something almost forcing him to reconnect with me. He would hear my name over and over again. Emails would pop up out of the blue. Facebooks would pop up out of the blue with my face, and he would go, "Gosh, I gotta call her. I told him that's called a God thing. From the moment we met for lunch, Rudy and I both realized that our lives would be forever changed by the other. Friends and work colleagues started to notice that something was different. My coworker said that I was in a world filled with rainbows and unicorns. Rudy's colleagues would ask him what was going on because he was so happy. Rudy told me over and over again that he owed me the 30 years that we had lost because we couldn't cross the silly Florida state line. Rudy and I quickly became engaged. We bought a home and laughed that we had set a wedding date of 2/22/22. We called our life our new normal, and we were blissfully happy. We made plans to travel the world and spend our remaining lives making each other's dreams come true. This past May, everything changed. Rudy was eventually diagnosed with Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. It is an extremely rare, fatal brain disease that basically robs us of life within four short months. I would just absolutely break into tears every single time Rudy would ask me as I sat by his hospital bed, "Will you still love me when I lose my mind?" But I burst into tears and I begged God to heal him, but God needed Rudy more to be with him. Rudy loved music and would send me love notes with music attached almost every other day. One of Rudy's favorite songs he sent to me is called "God Whispered Your Name" by Keith Urban. Rudy, as usual, was right, as the words in this song were exactly how we felt about each other. Here are just a few lines so you understand the depth of our love. "I was cold and lost, and nothing seemed to ring true. I couldn't bear the cross for everything that I had been through. Each day I knew I needed to change, but there was just no way. And then God whispered your name, and that's when everything changed. Love came out of the rain, and talk about being saved. Suddenly I wanted to live more than I ever did. I'm never going to be the same when God whispered your name. I can see the sunshine for the first time in a long time. It's like I've been baptized by the warmth of your smile. Call it fate or faith or just call it crazy, but everything changed when God whispered your name." I do not know what God's plan or purpose is for each of us. I do not know why Rudy and I were only given a year to be together. What I do know is that Rudy loved his family, he loves his work friends, the JCs, and me very much. Rudy, I can still feel your love every day when I reread your love letters, post-it notes, and the songs that you sent me. I know that we shared the most amazing love story, and I would not trade our love for anything. I am forever changed because God whispered your name.
Thank you, Gail. That was awesome. At this time, I'd like to invite up Stephen Bishop. Stephen is Rudy's best friend of 40 years and Republican committee advisor to President Trump. Yes.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, Gail, for putting this together today. Thanks to everybody for being here. I've known Rudy for, I guess, about 40 years now. We go back, and we knew one another pretty well. In the last, the last 25 or 30 years, we didn't see each other very often, but we did talk. Normally, we talked on a weekly basis, or at least every other week. And usually the conversations were, "How are you?" "I'm good." "How are you?" "Oh, I'm good." "How's the family?" "They're good." You get the picture. And then that was about it, unless, of course, there was something really going on. But one thing I knew in the last 10 or 12 years, just in my conversations with my best friend, was that he wasn't happy. Something wasn't right. I wasn't sure what it was, but I knew he just wasn't happy. Now, it wasn't work, because he loved Citigroup. He loved the people that he worked with. That was like a family to him. But somewhere along the line, something was wrong. He just wasn't happy. But I figured if he wanted to talk about it, he'd let me know that. And time goes by, and I never thought to really ask him very much. But then I noticed about a few months ago that he changed. Something was different. I could hear it in his voice. And I wasn't sure what it was, but one of the next conversations I finally asked him, "What's going on with you?" I said, you sound different. So he says, "Well, I'll tell you." So he laid it all out on the line. He decided that, sadly, him and his wife had decided to go their separate ways. And he said, I've reconnected with someone, and I'm very happy. He says, in fact, he says, I love her and I'm going to marry her. So I know what happened there. He was happy again. He was Rudy again. Well then, which by the way, I was very happy to hear that. And then about 2 months ago, I guess it's back in May, I get a phone call from Gail. She said, Rudy wanted me to call you. If there was ever a problem or something, to call you first. And she let me know that they were out in Arizona, and she had to place him in the hospital. And she explained why she had to put him in the hospital. It just blew me away when she told me what they thought it was. I'd never even heard of it. But immediately, like most people, I go right to the Google and I start looking it up, and it didn't paint a very pretty prognosis. But Gail's out in Tucson, Arizona. She's got her elderly parents there. And her and I were talking. She said, I've got to get my parents back to Florida, and then I'll come back. I said, well, you got to do what you got to do. But I'll be talking to him every day, 2 or 3 times a day. So she did. She took her parents back to Florida. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I talked to Rudy several times in the course of the 2 days she was gone. And we had some very open and frank conversations. First thing he said was, I can't wait till she gets back. He said, I just need her with me. And he said, by the way, he said, I know that whatever's going on here is not good. I said, what makes you think that? And he said, well, I overhear the doctors. So he knew he was in trouble. He knew something wasn't right. But you know, what do I as his best friend say to him at a time like that? So what I said was, well, you need to know, and I think I posted this on the JC page. I said, there's a lot of people in Florida, your old JC family, that are praying for you, big time, nonstop. And he said this, he says, I know I can feel it. I'm not real sure what he meant by that, but he said it, so I know he was a believer in prayer. He was a godly man, so his faith was there. Thank God his faith was there. But we went on and we talked about the fact that him and Gail were going to be married. He knew that might also be in trouble. I mean, Rudy was a smart man. He knew there was something very, very wrong. But now I want to go back even further. When I first met Rudy. I first met Rudy, I think it was 1980, or maybe 79, I don't remember. There's some pictures up here, maybe you get a chance to see him in those younger days. It's unbelievable. And I was just getting into the political side of the JCs at that point in time, so Rudy and I were taking a drive from Boca Raton down to Fort Lauderdale Clubhouse. And Rudy I think he had one of these vests on with this goofy hat with all these things on it. And as we're driving down, I said, well, Rudy, I didn't know him that well at the time. I said, Rudy, where do you want to go in this organization? He said, I want to be state president. I said, no, really? I said, what do you mean, no, really? He said, I want to be state president. Now I'm looking at this guy with this vest and this goofy hat. But he said, no, that's what I want to do. He said, I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to work as hard as I need to work to become the president of the Florida JCs. That's what he wanted. And after several years of hard work, he did it all. Chapter president, district director, regional director, state treasurer, state vice president, he finally became president of the Florida JCs, and what a great year we had. It was unbelievable. I'll never forget it. But I could go on and on about those funny things, but I'm not going to do it for time. But I just want you to know this. What you got from Rudy, what you saw was what you got. He was the real deal. He loved the people that he worked with at Citigroup dearly. He loved his JC family. And I know, and I believe, that just a few weeks ago, when he left us, and he went home, and he met his maker, he heard, "Good job, my faithful servant." Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bishop. At this time, I'd like to invite up here Chris Miter. Chris is a colleague of Rudy and the president of Salient Systems.
Thank you, Pastor. First of all, I wanted to thank Gail for what she put together here to honor a great man. For those that didn't know him as well as some of us, he's just was an unbelievable person. He was my customer, so I can take it from a little bit different side. Rudy had a very strong personality. I met Rudy about 20 years ago. I worked for Honeywell at the time. I'd probably been there about 4 or 5 years. Rudy walked in the room. We had put together this dealer and end user council, and we had asked these end users to give us some feedback on our product. And boy, did we get some feedback. He took over the room. He had such a presence. But when he sat there and told us exactly what we were doing right, but then actually telling us what we were doing wrong, it was spot on. And it was the ability for us to really change directions and make ourselves a better company and better people. He literally would walk on the floor of any of these shows, and he had such a presence. There was people waiting in line to talk to him, and literally kiss the ring, because that's the kind of person he had built himself. He was just an excellent gentleman. He really, really gave you what you wanted. He was very direct. His insight was excellent. And what a lot of people don't realize, that Rudy bridged a lot of different categories of organizations, geographic areas, different people in different parts of the company at different levels, whether you were, a junior intern or a CEO of a large company. He knew how to relate to you and how to talk to you. And he just gave you that, at the end of the day, really gave you the ability to feel like he was listening to you. He really cared about the people. As Stephen said, he really did care about the people at Citi. I saw that every day. It was amazing about how he stood and honored the people that he worked for and held them accountable, but really respected them and praised them to people like myself. A couple years ago, we had been working on a project with Rudy, and things kind of were going south. We had a couple of issues with the product, and it kind of got elevated to Rudy's desk. Rudy called for a meeting, and I would tell you there's Judy's court, and now there's Rudy's court. And unfortunately, all the stakeholders were at this meeting, and I was the one that was going to be grilled. And yes, we had made a couple mistakes. We had fallen short on some of our promises. Rudy asked me, "Can you resolve this issue?" I said, "Yes." Rudy says, "How long?" I said, "We can get this resolved in 30 days. Everybody, it was like you could hear a pin drop. Everybody's waiting for him just to basically come down on me. He says, "I'm not going to wail on you." He actually said those words to me. "Chris, I respect you. I trust you. Get it done. We're finished." Click. So that was it. Back in February, Rudy and I got together person to person. We've been all locked out of our facilities. We can't meet person to person over the last year. Everybody knows how that's going. Rudy, I said, we got to see face to face. met at a little restaurant right down the road. And we'd had several conversations, business conversations over the last year, but the first thing he does when he walks in the restaurant, first of all, he looked great. He lost over 60 pounds. I'm saying, who is this guy? He sits down in front of me and goes, we got to talk about our lives. I go, what's going on? He starts telling me about the last year. Gail, he was a changed man. He was like a little kid. He was like a kid going to homecoming, a little high school kid. He was so happy. He told me about everything you guys were doing and how things had changed and how much he missed life. For those of you who don't know Rudy, this man devoted his life to raising his children and building Citibank and making sure that facilities were protected in the best way, whether it was the technology, the security application. Think about what he carried on his shoulders for the last 50, 40 years of being in his career. And now he finally had the opportunity to kind of put the right people in place, start to mentor them to take over his responsibilities, and he got right there. There's 3 words that I would say, way too soon. This man should have been around for another 20 years. It's such a disappointment. The last thing I got to say is, Rudy, you were great. You were great to me. You were great to a lot of my colleagues. We've had some people that we chatted with about at the breakfast about friends that we have today, friends that we've lost through our careers, and how endearing he was and how his heart just poured out. He might have had a really strong skin, but inside there was a huge heart in that man. Rudy, all I can say is rest in peace, my buddy. We loved you. Take care.
That was fantastic, thank you. At this point, we'd like to invite up Jade Wink. Jane is also a colleague of Rudy and Senior VP of CSIS Technology with Citigroup.
Thank you, Pastor. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jade, and I'm only standing here before you speaking today because I know it's the type of thing that Rudy would have encouraged me to do. He was always pushing me to be the best and bravest version of myself. I had the pleasure of working for him over the last 4 years at Citibank, and he loved his team like we were extended family. He made me feel like one of his children, so we were very well taken care of, with a little bit of tough love sprinkled in there. He was our leader, and he had a solution for every problem. He was a mentor. He always had wisdom to impart, and he was our friend. He always had a relevant or hilarious story to share with us. I think it's safe to say that his personality was larger than life. He was the loudest, he was the most animated, but he was the most gentle and the most sincere person I've ever met in my career. I can think of a number of occasions where he doubled as my bodyguard to get me from point A to point B unscathed. It didn't matter where we were, local to home or out on the road, his mission in life was always to provide security and protect. And while I can't believe that he's not physically here with us today, I do have to believe that an energy that powerful and that dynamic will live on through all of us for the rest of our lives. Gail, thank you for being here and for being wonderful. You've been such a rock for all of us over the last several months. And I know I speak on behalf of his entire city family when I say that he will be missed. Thank you.
Thank you, Jade. We'd like to invite up Eric Seidel Sr. Eric is a JC colleague of Rudy and the 72nd president of the USJCs and the current mayor of the city of Oldsmar, Florida. Sir?
Thank you, sir. Thank you. First off, Gail, thank you, as everybody else has thanked you for being kind of blocking the view there. You know, it's funny seeing a bunch of folks you haven't seen in a while, and we were talking about it, a couple of us, saying we got to quit just getting together when somebody passes. We lose someone we love. And I know we have a reunion coming up. I hope you'll go to it. And I promise you, there will be some toasting going on in Rudy's name, because he did that to us all the time. And so that's not going to stop. I just have to say this. It's good to see Steve Bishop. I haven't seen him in so long. It really is. And is anybody surprised he's still a hack? Sorry, I just couldn't resist that. Rudy would appreciate that. I know there's a lot of folks here from the JCs, and I want to start with a saying that everybody will be familiar with, and that, in my opinion, kind of captures Rudy. Once in your life, if you're lucky. For all of us and many others, we were lucky, because we not only got to meet him, we got to know him. I first met Rudy when I was a local JC president. Now, mind you, I'm 24 years old, and I'm learning stuff at that age, like most young people are. And I went to our regional caucus, which was Dade and Monroe County, down in Region 13. And Rudy was the guest speaker. Now, I had never met him before, never really heard him speak, or that JC speaker. I listened to him speak that day, and he had us all on fire. I mean, he was just lighting it up. You know, and Rudy, the way he had that like weird wiggle that he would do, right? You know, and then he closed with the big eyes, Bubba, you know. And I sat there and I watched him, and I wasn't only motivated, though. I thought to myself, I want to learn how to do that. I want to make people feel the way he just made everybody feel. Well, I figured I'd ask Rudy to come to our chapter meeting, and I think Sharon Johnson probably helped put that together. And so Rudy came to our meeting. I'm local president, and we had one of those meetings where everything went perfect, right? I mean, had a big turnout, it was a good upbeat meeting, a lot of applause, and Rudy got up, did an amazing job, and at the end of the meeting we had like 10 guests join, right? I mean, perfect meeting. Couldn't ask for a better meeting. And at the end of the meeting, Rudy took me aside and he said, with the daddy hold on, he said, "You're going to do great things in this organization, and I'm going to help you." Now, that impact, I felt it that night, and it was sincere. I'm 24, wide-eyed, excited. And later that year, at the National Convention in Richmond, Virginia, our chapter was fortunate enough to be recognized as the #1 chapter in America. And when I came off the stage, there was Rudy, Daddy. He said, "I told you you would do great things, but your journey is just beginning." And he walked away. But he followed up. He didn't just speak the words and walk away. He followed up. I mean, he impacted a lot of people. And so, I went on to become district director when Rudy was president. And so, I'm reminded of a story. You know, when you're a local chapter president, for those of you who aren't familiar with JC, when you're a local chapter president, you kind of like have your own gig, right? I mean, you're in charge. You know, you're the leader of the group, right? Well, then when you become a district director and you're on someone's team and you're on a state team, you are no longer the boss, right? The boss is President Rudy. And so it was probably mid-year, and I'm learning about, I'm on somebody else's team and they're the boss. And so we decided that we would go out and do an extension in the community of Doral. For those of you who don't know what that means, it means we were going to go there, and Doral was out in West Miami, and we were going to start a new chapter out there. And so Steve Bishop, who was his chief of staff at the time, came down. I don't know if you remember working on this, Steve, but we're out, we're working on this extension, going in and knocking on doors and businesses and talking to people, blah, blah, blah. And so we finish up, Steve goes back up to Palm Beach, and we're getting closer to the end of the month, and I come to the conclusion that this extension is not going to get finished, right? And I had made that decision as district director. We only had about 15 members. We needed 5 more. It wasn't going to happen. There were 3 days left. Lo and behold, I get a call from President Rudy. He says, "Hey, Bubba, how's that extension coming? How many members are you going to turn it in with at the end of the month?" I said, "Well, President Rudy, we're not going to get it in this month, but you can count on it for next month." Dead silence. All of a sudden he goes, "You know, I sent my chief of staff down there." I'm like, "Yeah, no, it was great." He goes, "It's done." I'm like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Rudy, no, it's done." He goes, "It's done. It's already in the books, it's done. As a matter of fact, you should try to get to 22. And I said, "Rudy, you don't understand." He goes, "No, you don't understand. This is how this is going to work, Bubba. If you have to take the next 3 days off of work to go knock on doors, I suggest you take them. Click." So I got mad. Then I took the next 2 days off of work and got it finished. You know, I went on, as most of you know, and served in the different offices in our state and the privilege of being state president. And then coming off the stage, being sworn in as national president. I spoke to Rudy that same night, and he said to me, "I'm proud of you. Florida's proud of you. I'm going to make America proud of you. There's nothing you can't do." That was the kind of man he was. Inspiring others, not just with his words, but he was always there. Once in your life, if you're lucky. Rest in peace, Blake. See you on the other side. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, we'd like to invite up Rick Welty. Rick is a JC colleague as well of Rudy, and the 66th president of Florida JCs and the CFO of Gator Environmental Site Work.
Oh, as you can tell, I'm hobbled up here. That was due to COVID. The other thing happened about 3 years ago was I had a stroke. So after that, I had to take some medications because I was prone to seizures. And I got the medication, but every now and then, you know, things slip a little bit. So if for some reason I leap forward and I fall on the floor and I'm traveling around like a bass on the bottom of a jumbo, you'll know why. So just back up and just let me do my thing, I'll be okay. You know, the Rudy that I really enjoyed was the one that took off the jacket and the tie and just went out and had fun. That's the Rudy I like. Rudy came over, I decided I needed good trainers, and I had it at my house. And so I picked the best 2 that were in the Florida JCs. I picked Rudy, and I picked Sharon Johnson. I thought that was a pretty good deal. Rudy and everybody came over. We had about 30 people there, and we had training. And Rudy, being membership oriented, not quite as bad as what he did with Seidel, but it was a pretty good session. And his main theme was, if you're not growing, you're dying. And I think Mr. Seidel took that pretty personally when it came to that extension. He felt the fear in his heart. We also had Sharon there, and she was to handle CPGs and writing books and all that. So she jumped right into it. Now understand, this whole thing has taken about 45 minutes to an hour, and the people are getting restless. They loved the training, they loved the people, but they were getting really restless. The next thing I know, they're filing out the doors, and they managed to discover my considerable arsenal of 4th of July, fireworks, and other heavy ornaments. So when it got down to it, Sharon was finished with her riveting CPG training, and things were getting kind of slow. But meanwhile, the boys went outside, and the ladies just sat inside. I think they were getting Tupperware party training or something like that. And the boys went outside to play fireworks. So there was a woods behind my house, and a lot of them siled up there and decided to fire on the house from there. And then the other groups sat behind the house and fired back. Well, we caught the woods on fire. Then comes Rudy. Rudy decided to recruit a fire brigade. He grabbed all of the trash cans he could find, and he put the troops together, and they put out the fire. Well, before that, the incoming was being pretty bad around the house. Sharon jumps in, and she was Nurse Sharon. She came up with her large bottle of Black Label Jack Daniels and cared for the wounded. And she knew there was a lot of pain with all that, that black powder and everything. So she would reach over and say, here's one for you, here's one for me, here's one for you. Are you feeling the pain anymore? Because I sure ain't. So we got done with that. We knocked off a keg, and everyone lived in peace. Now recently, I'm switching gears here because I don't think I should monopolize the time. But me and Rudy got to share a lot of things. He would call me on his way home from work, and we just talked about a lot of things. And two guys like me and him, it got really earthy really soon. All of a sudden the F-bombs were being dropped. All of a sudden we're really getting really nasty and naughty. But he would always say, oops, I got a phone call. And it'd be his boss. Man, things would stop. He would take care of it immediately, drop everything and do that. And then when he called once in a while, I'd say, oh, Rudy, my men's fellowship group is on Zoom. I gotta take care of this now. So the phone would drop off. And you gotta understand what we were talking about first before the boss call and before I had to get BSF on Zoom. It's like a juxtaposition. Here we are being naughty boys. I'm going in to talk about Jesus, and he's walking to his boss. So that was a bit strange, but that's the way Rudy and I were. We could do the naughty things and we do the good things. But Rudy had some good things that he kept inside. And that first line of the creed always was right there. We believe that faith in God gives meaning and purpose to life. Wow, that first line so many times got buried. Not with Rudy. It was underneath the surface. That naughty part, it blew away, but that part underneath, that was amazing. Now you gotta understand, Rudy would do anything for growth in the organization. And so one time, rough membership bet, he had kind of a one-offer with this gal called Judy. And she was kind of a full-figured gal, kind of like laying Bryant on steroids. And the guys down there said, look, Judy likes to be kissed on the butt. And Rudy says, what are you talking about? He said, no, Judy likes to be kissed on her behind. So Rudy goes on down, it's a membership, bet. And he gets down there and he realizes that Judy is a 1,200-pound sow. Now, this is a one-off, okay? So, Rudy did not want to be unfaithful, or he didn't want any of that. But if that's what he had to do, that's what he had to do. And I've got pictures. I didn't bring them here tonight, and Rudy, being that stand-up guy, they did make their growth. Rudy put right down on his knees, and he kissed that pig's butt. Rudy would stand up for anything to get growth for the organization. What kind of guy is that? So when we had these talks on his way back from work, we started talking about church. And he had just found a new church with Gail. And so we started talking about our childhood, about growing up in church. Now, both of us went a lot of routes, and Jesus would come and go in our lives. He was always inside, but we kind of just shoved him off to the side. But he would talk to me about how he grew up in church. I'd talk to him how I grew up in church. Totally different things. I was from Wisconsin on a dairy farm. Church was at 11 o'clock, one service. It was congregational church. And the reason for that is everybody in Wisconsin had to get up early to milk the cows. And nothing interfered with milking the cows. So church was at 11. Oh, then the milking time again came at 6 in the evening. So nobody did anything but milk the cows and go to church. Now in Rudy's case, he was raised Southern Baptist, and it's Georgia. When you're in a Baptist church, Southern Baptist church, it's an all-day deal, okay? You are there all day long. Plenty of food, plenty of preaching, it's a long day. And in case you didn't know, you want to know why Rudy has that Southern drawl thing? That's where he got it, a whole afternoon of preaching. And Rudy could figure out how to do that and motivate people. It was just amazing. You could have sworn he was up there just preaching. And he made those motivational speeches. And you really didn't have to fact check, because it didn't matter. It just didn't matter. Because when he was talking, whether it be that Southern Baptist thing, or that corporate boardroom thing, or just simply that JC thing, it did what it needed to do. Who cares about all the facts? Matter of fact, Mr. Bishop told me that 98% of Rudy's stories were stories. He used a different term, but not here in church. So, and I wrote down my speech. I was going to, and I wrote it down on a scroll. It was so important. So oops. Well, the heck with that. I'll just have to do it off the cuff. So, as we talked about church, and we talked about our faith, didn't realize how much in common we had. And then we finally figured out it was Jesus. It was our common bond through all the craziness, even Judy. And it was amazing that two old friends all of a sudden put Jesus right smack in the middle. Now, Gail, this one's for you. And I gotta be funny at the beginning, but it'll bring your heartstrings later. You were telling me that during Rudy's year, that your chapter came in second. Mr. Bishop's chapter came in first. I guess he was just sucking up to his head, I don't know. But you know what? You'll get over it. Because in my year as president, the president of the Boca JCs dropped 100 members on me. I wasn't happy about that. And I know you weren't happy about me in number 2. But I got over it. I went ahead and married her. After 100 members, I went ahead and married her. What a stand-up kind of guy, isn't it? Well, in your case, you're set to marry Rudy. And that's okay. Just a little while off. Maybe who knows how long it will be. But you know what? When that day finally comes, Jesus is going to be the one there officiating. You'll be together. Eternity's a long time. We can wait a few more years, a few more seconds. Doesn't really matter. You know, and this goes for all the prayer warriors. I almost forgot about you guys. When Rudy was really in the thick of this, and I was getting my information from Steve and Gail, and they were the ones that were there through the entire thing. So I kept our prayer group in JC's kind of going for the recovery thing. And I said, guys, none of this hearts and minds and prayers go with you. How many times have we heard that on TV? It's all fake. I said, you guys pray like you're praying to Jesus. You drag that sword out and you make those prayers with a sword. Make it like you mean it. And boy, there was a lot of JCs started to meet it. I thank you, prayer warriors, because somehow or another what you prayed for just didn't quite turn out the way you were praying for it. But remember this, in the words of Isaiah, my thoughts are not your thoughts, my ways are not your ways. You pray. When God heard you pray, that was his way. My job is God. I do the details. I am great. I'm in control of everything. You guys just pray. You did God something that made him smile. I'll handle Rudy. I got no problem with that. Matter of fact, I had a dream the other night, and I dreamt that Rudy was almost ready to enter the gates. And there was a host of angels standing around outside, smoking a cigar, whatever. And they looked over at Rudy and said, man, I don't know, man. Who let him in? And God leaned over and says, buzz off. I make the decisions around here. And so Rudy is up there. He's waiting on Gail. He's meeting a lot of people that he hadn't seen in a long while. And he's where he needs to be. I can only imagine what it'll be like when I walk by your side. I can only imagine what my eyes would see when your face is beyond before me. I surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I dance for you, Jesus, or in all of you be still? Will I stand in your presence, or to my knees I will fall? I will sing hallelujah. Will I be able to speak at all? I can only imagine. I can only imagine. You're not imagining anymore, my beloved friend. You're there.
I don't know how I always end up with the toilet paper. How's that happen? Do you want to open things up at this point? Keep going? Okay. At this point, we would like to open up the mic for a short story. I think we're running a little bit over, but I'll make sure to adjust my time since we just got the sermon. Yeah, does anybody want to share a memory, a thought, something? Yes.
My name is Mark Harrow. My family goes back a long time about Rudy. We've known him for very many years. We used to watch his first child, Jason, a long time ago. He was the president the year I joined at 18. So I go back a long time with anybody in this room. He's a hard working man. He's the kind of get down and dirty. He'll come and help build a haunted house with you. He loves to do that kind of work. But the year I ran the haunted house, he showed up the last night. We started turning down the haunted house that night. It was the first time we ever done that. He's a man that'll come and work with you and help you out. He's a very good man and will be missed.
All right, for those of you who don't recognize me, which you should, because I haven't changed one bit in 36 years, I'm still skinny, trim, sexy, maybe a little less hair. I do weigh less than when you all knew me. My name is Lee Davis. I was in Gail's chapter. And Gail, we may have come in number 2 next to Steve, but you're number 1 in this guy's heart. So everybody who's a JC, raise your hand. The reason we're here is because of Rudy. The way he touched our hearts. And the kind of guy that he was. Now, I don't know about you all, and my memory is as good as it used to be, but I remember the state convention up there in Orlando. There were like 12 buildings, and they all looked alike. It was the Octagon. Now, pods, thank you, pods. Well, I don't remember a lot about that weekend, because back then I used to drink. I don't anymore, but I did. And I had great times in the JCs. It's one of my highlights of my life. My name became Bubba. I can't tell you how many times I heard Bubba. Bubba. There's this charismatic, I can't even say it anymore, but there's this guy whose presence was like over the top of everybody. He's a good-looking stud. When he has tux on, remember that white scarf he used to wear? All right, but you get movies? I'm Rudy. Okay. I'm the state president. Oh, God. Seriously. Excuse me. And it was always Bubba. So I thought about getting my license changed to Bubba. So Gail calls me up one day, not too long ago. Well, it was a little while ago now. I have a surprise for you. I bought a house. I said, yes. You did buy a house. I got another surprise. I said, okay, I like surprises. Now, 36 years ago, I moved to Florida. The week after I moved here, I met this young lady that was just so hot. She was crazy. She had just, it was a bubble and to be with and enjoyed life so much. And we became best friends. Everybody thought we dated. I'm here to straighten that out. Never did. A party animal, and that's how I really got to know Rudy. So when Gail calls me, she says, I bought a house, and I have a surprise. And I go, okay. What she didn't know is I already knew about it. I had heard some rumors, so I did a little checking out. And you gotta come to dinner. It's me and Rudy. I go, what took you so long to tell me about this? So Rudy and I just reconnected. We hadn't talked in years. We just reconnected. It's like, you know how you run into a friend, you haven't seen him in 5, 8 years, and he just left off where you had left it before? That's what it was with Rudy. It was Bubba. He calls me up one day and he goes, hey Bubba, I need my concealed license. I'm a partner in a gun shop. I said, yeah, we could do that for you. So, he couldn't make his first appointment, but he came for the second class. He came out about 20 minutes early and I made sure I was there for it. Bubba walks in the door. Bubba, where are you? And I introduced him to my business partner. And it's like these two have been friends for 30 years. And that's the kind of person Rudy was. And the problem is, we don't get to meet that many people that impact our lives the way Rudy did. I came up here, and I'm a pretty sentimental guy. And I don't like to be at gatherings like this. It tears me apart. I've done it too many times. But I put my hand on that orange shirt down there. It's kind of like feeling he's still here. And Rick, where are you? Oh, there you are. I don't know that he's just sitting there waiting for Gail. I think he's recruiting a bunch of people out there. Start a new chapter, to be honest with you. Because instead of being in his 60s, I think he's in his 20s again. So, I'm going to miss Rudy because he did have such great impact. I didn't get to be with him as much as I'd like to. I know if he was still here, we would have gotten even closer. But brother, I love you. I'll take care of Gail while she's still here, for as long as I'm here. And then when we're all together, we'll just have another party. We'll enjoy ourselves. Oh yeah, these steps are a ditch, by the way.
I wasn't planning on doing this, but I was sitting there thinking, most of you that are JCs probably think that Teddy Bear or Eric are my president, but no, Ted's my friend. I call him when I need some prayers, extra prayers. Eric's my friend. Rudy was my president. You guys being Ds and presidents for him is nothing. Try being an RD under Rudy. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. We did 6 extensions in Region 10. 6! I mean, from Hayden City to Moorhaven. We got them done. And there was no question that you were going to get them done. One weekend, we had all the regional directors at my house because it was the middle of the state. When Rudy found out that all Harris RDs were in one spot for the whole weekend, Sharon's shaking her head, he went ballistic. But it worked out. We all got together, we talked, we made it work. And yes, I was the #1 RD in the state. And yes, I was the #1 RD in the nation. But my thoughts about Rudy are, when he was working for Hollywood Federal back in 1990, after Don had retired from the Sheriff's Department, you get every license there is. Concealed weapons, security guard business, a security guard license, a repossession license, you get them all. And they don't cost nothing. So we're sitting in the office and Don's in the back office and I'm in the front. And he says, Rudy's on the phone, he's got some repos. I said, okay. Well, yeah, he had some repos. Hollywood Federal was closing down. They had 350 repos in Hillsborough County and they had the keys to them all. Oh my gosh, if you ever know about the repo business, if you got the keys, you got it made. We did those 350 repos, and as we started doing them, we were hauling them all the way down to Hollywood Federal. We had one truck and a little trailer that hauled 3 cars. Well, we bought another truck and started hauling 6 cars at a time. Then the next thing you know, Rudy says, I don't have time to do this. We're taking them all to the auction, I don't have the time. Don says, Rudy's on the phone. I said, oh God, what now? You know, he wanted us to start repping them in the auction up here. So, not only are we getting the money to repo the cars, now we're getting the money to clean the cars, now we're getting the money to represent them in the auction, and most of them we got the money to haul them wherever the people bought them from. Our business started in January 4th of 1990, and thanks to Rudy, we ended up with 9 trucks on the road, 9 drivers. We had one of our daughters in the office. We had 2 mechanics. Because of Rudy, our business grew, and we had a very successful business. We did finally get rid of the 9 drivers and got just 2 trucks ourselves and went all over the country. But because of Rudy, it started.
Okay, this position here, somebody else spoke, I don't want to repeat things. First of all, Teddy Bear, he's called me Teddy Bear in a little while. Thank you. Gail, thank you for doing this. I know this was not easy to do this here, absolutely not. And it's so great to see everybody here. You know, Rudy was the 65th president of the Florida JCs. And there's, what were you, Eric, 69? Rick, where you 66? I was 60, okay? Which means I'm the old guy here. Which means that I watched Rudy grow up. Okay, I was one of those guys that said, there's a guy down in the Boca area, and he is sharp. And like you heard, he's gonna be something someday. You know, and he wound up being a great leader. But more importantly, he was loved by so many people. And that's the real sign of a great leader. Not necessarily what you did, how many extensions you did, how many awards, but did you touch lives and did people appreciate it? And he absolutely did. Absolutely did. Now, when I finished my year as state president, I had somebody come up to me, a good friend, kind of a mentor, and he said, you know, I've seen a lot of past presidents of the organization, and I heard one talk about, and it wasn't me, it was before me, saying being president of the state organization was the best thing I ever did in my whole life. And this was years after he'd been president. And that individual looked at me and said, you're finishing your year. I hope this year isn't the best year of your life. It's not about holding that office. It's not about the awards. It's about where you go from there. And it was an honor to hear the people that he's been working with and touching lives ever since. I haven't seen Rudy in 30 years, okay? But to hear the impact that he's had on lives after that, and I'll give credit to some of the JC experience, because I do believe that the experience that we learned in those roles helped us in our lives. It helped me, I know that. It helped me in one other thing, too. And I didn't realize this at the time. And Rick, I appreciate you bringing this up. That faith in God gives meaning and purpose to human life. You know, I had a renewed understanding in that as I grew up. As I grew up, and that means after JCs, as I grew up. And I think we believe that. So many of us believe that. And we thank the Lord for that. So at this time, you know, I know there's pain, and oh my goodness, did he go too early? Sure, but he went in God's time. And we know that God's time is perfect time. God has a plan for him, and he's putting in work up there right now. I guarantee you that. So we can't look back at the pain that you might be feeling, the loss that we may be feeling. We can look back at the good times that we remember, all the wonderful things he did, and the lives that he touched. We can look at those things. But more importantly, we can be comfortable knowing that what he just went through is gone. The pain that he went through is gone. He's at rest right now. We know where he's at. We know his faith has put him where he's at. He's with the Lord, he's with Jesus. And we thank the Lord for taking good care of him. And yes, put him to work. We got a lot more people that need to get up there with Rudy right now. So I thank you all very much. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Wow, it's really awesome to hear all these stories that, 30 plus years. I'm only 31. I don't have this big aura and big history with Rudy. I met Rudy Christmas Eve last year. I'm Gail's nephew, and Gail's not only my aunt, she's my best friend. I was going through a pretty dark time in my life, and I walked into my grandparents' house, and there's a big Suburban in the front driveway. I know that you guys probably have heard the show Sopranos. James Gandolfini played Tony Soprano, and that's the best Hollywood example I can give of Rudy Wolter. I was going through a pretty tough time, transitioning, selling a house, getting out of a 5-year relationship. And I went to Gail and I said, you know, I'm gonna be looking for a place to stay, keep an eye on. She says, well, I bought a house. I said, okay. Come stay with me. I said, all right. Well, here I met Rudy. And it was a very shocking surprise. I know Lee Davis for many, many years now. And if you didn't know about it, because I know how close you two, I certainly didn't know about it. Lo and behold, there's a phone call about 3 days later, and a couple choice words like, how could you keep this from me? Anyway, fast forward to February, I got COVID, and I moved in just shortly before I got COVID, and they both took care of me, put me down, and if you guys know me, some of you do, you can't stop me. I'm 100 miles an hour all the time. But I don't have a bad thing to say about the man. He opened up his home, he opened up his heart, and rest in peace, big guy. I got her now.
Hello everyone, it's great to see you all. I had sent a message to Gail that I finally found a way to get here today, and I wanted to have the opportunity just to say a couple of things. Lynn, you were an RD for Rudy. I was an RD with Rudy. I met Rudy at the end of year conference. Who did we say that conference was before Ed's year? Who was before Ed? Was it Granger?
Neil.
Oh, Neil. Oh, anyway, he is from 13. Oh boy, how quickly we forget. Anyway, by the way, Rudy, the Brandells are here, and several others that are here in your honor. I met Saunders and Dee, and it's a good crowd, a very good crowd. You'd be proud. I've been sort of channeling him ever since he got sick. And I wanted to go, when he was brought back down to Sarasota, I wanted to go, but the word was he wasn't getting any visitors, and I just wanted to go camp out just to be close. But anyway, I digress. At the end of year conference, starting our year as RDs, I came from out of nowhere. Nobody knew me, nobody knew I wasn't a DD, a district director before I was an RD. All of a sudden, here I am, RD of the largest region in Florida. And lo and behold, I'm at this first meeting, and I'm checking out the competition. And I'm looking at Brian Brown, I'm looking at Timmy Sinnott, and here I turn around and I look at, Barbara Churchwell, good friend, and I look next to me, and there's this, he was a pretty handsome guy, a little sure of himself. I could hear him talking already. Talking about all the great things Region 12 was going to do. And it came out that Rudy and I battled, and I mean battled, for the top spot every closeout. So what would happen every closeout is that when he was at Hollywood Federal, I would close out my region, get in the car, drive to Hollywood Federal, which was so far away from Miami, and we'd sit there and he'd close out. I wouldn't tell him what I did. We'd close out and we'd wait for the state numbers. Of course, you had to wait because we had to wait for the Panama City crowd to get their numbers in because they had an additional hour. And we would wait, and he would go, and we'd wait for Scotty, Barsters, and Dion, and they all knew that Sharon and Rudy are down in Hollywood waiting for the state numbers. And so we'd get them every day, and he'd write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So he would never know what we did until the very last number given to him from the state office. Come to find out that year in, we went back month by month. I don't know if you remember the pink pith helmets that Region 12 had, Rudy's pink That was before these non-gender colors and all this kind of stuff. Rudy was a man's man and took the pink very carefully and used it to his advantage. The girls loved it. And you'll have to remember that was in the beginning of the organization because the women had just come in during Ted's year and we were just getting into the leadership positions in the state, working our way through the organization. Anyway, pink, and so my color was teal, dolphins, teal. My theme was, let's go all the way, a little risque, or let's go all the way to the Keys, whatever way you want to take it. Anyway, by the end, Rudy and I pretty much split monthly closeouts. Thankfully, they give 3 outstanding RDs every year. So Rudy got one, I got one, I think it was Barbara got one. And ever since then, he's been, even though he's 3 months younger, he was like my big brother. We went through VP year together. I was part of his team on, well, let me back up Bobby's year. Bobby, I just found out this recently, that how the whole first woman to become a senator, it was a big deal. And Rudy had told me he was giving somebody senatorship that night, and it was the worst senatorship I had ever heard, presentation that he did. He did this, and he was emphasizing the he. Turned out that it was my senatorship. I think you were part of that as well, Mr. Seidel. And I was so honored for him to give me the highest honor you can receive as a JC, to present it. And I think of him often. I want to say that we had talked April, March, Kim, the alumni website. Rudy, you know, was adding his 2 cents. Rick had to add it, and I had to defend myself. So, and by the way, what Rick said, anything that had my name in it, don't believe it. Nothing at all like that happened. Except I want to tell you the one time that Rudy really ticked me off. It was our final year-end closeout, we were at the state convention. Somebody decided they were going to take a bottle of Jack and they were going to start in Region 1 and everybody was going to give their report and then they had to do you remember? So remember, 1 and I'm all the way to the last and I thought, okay, Rudy will help me, he'll drink a bunch of it. And I only have a little bit to do at the end, because the bottle had to be finished by the time it got through all of the RDs. Anyway, they're drinking. I would say 8 shots left by the time it got to Rudy. And I'm looking at him, and I'm saying, if you know what's good for you, if you ever want to be state president. And so he lifted it to his lips, and I swear he didn't drink any. I swear. However, being a woman, being one of the top performers, I had to drink the rest of the bottle. I hardly could stand up to give my report. But that was the only time but I wasn't mad for long. It was just April that Rudy and I reconnected. We had these big plans with the Welties. Gary told me he had something big to tell me. He was going to wait till we got to the reunion. We were going to go to the reunion and catch up. And now we're not. I know this is a celebration of life, and it's been such a wonderful afternoon listening to everyone talk about Rudy. I feel so much better. And you're right, Eric, we will drink lots of toasts to Rudy at the reunion. God bless you all, and thank you for the opportunity.
In all seriousness, I'm just going to switch total gears. I'm going to pull this out if it's okay. You know what? Listening to y'all, honestly, the thing that comes to mind to me is legacy. And you start getting my age, 29, and you think legacy. In all seriousness, I started thinking about legacy when I hit 50, I guess. But I hear about Rudy's life and the impact he's had on your lives. And honestly, the reason I do what I do now is because I want to have an impact on people's life. And just sitting here as y'all were recounting all the stories and all the sweet memories, I sure hope folks are at my memorial being able to say similar type things about me. And so, in view of all that, I'm just disappointed I hadn't gotten to see Rudy this side of glory, but I do trust that one day I will. And here's the thing: is you and I have walked some weeks together, and the reality is that when you're thrust into a situation like this, I don't think, I've come to the conclusion, I've walked the journey of grief far too many times in my life. That's partially why I end up in this area as well. But I really feel those verses we read in the beginning, where God, what He does is, as you're going through a process of grief, which it is, He surrounds you with people who comfort you with the same comfort they've received from God. And so I really would just impart to you, as we're kind of wrapping things up here, I've heard a lot of talk about Jesus, and I love that the gentleman over here was just saying it just all comes back to Jesus, and it really does. We've kind of, in the church, we've unfortunately have for many eons, decades and centuries told you what we're against. Everybody knows what the church is against, right? We've made that well known, but the reality is what the church is for people, because God is for people. He loves people. He adores us. And a lot of people ask me why things like this happen. It shouldn't happen like this. And I have no answers for the whys, but I do have the answers for. My answer is this: is that I do know when, not why, but I know when these things happen. There's a wonderful thing that happens as you draw near to God. He brings comfort and healing, and He brings you through a journey, which is celebration of life is just one part of that, and bringing healing and comfort to your heart. And I just encourage you, wherever you are in your walk of faith, that you would reach out to God and allow Him to bring you that same comfort. And in closing, in order to honor Rudy, what better way than to recite the JC's Creed together? And I don't know it personally, so can somebody lead us here and grab the, if you don't know the JC Creed, would you grab the pamphlet, the program, and you can read it there. And I'm going to get it up on my phone real quick.
We believe that faith in God gives meaning and purpose in human life, that the government of man should transcend the sovereignty of nations, that economic justice can best be won by a free man through free enterprise, that government should be of laws, not of men, and earth's great treasure lies in human personality, and the service humanity is the best part of life. Godspeed, Rudy.
Well, that concludes. Do you want to make the announcement, or would you like me? Okay, well, there's going to be a light fair and some things you can enjoy out there and have some time together in the lobby. And Gail would love to invite you all back there. Thank you.
Turn around twice and go back.
They went out to the first. Oh, you went out to the you got the bug out. Oh, yeah. I'm going to JC.
That was fun. I still have that record in my garage. Oh my god. We did them as fundraisers, did you? Yes. Hilarious. Awesome.